Welcome to the deep dive. Today, today we're going to try and tackle this question I think we all grapple with. Can we truly reclaim our time and our social lives in a digital world that seems like it's designed to keep us hooked?
It's a great question.
So our guide for this deep dive is Preeti Sharma's book. It's called Your Practical Guide to Digital Wellness and Better Social Connections. And we're going beyond just summarizing tips. We're going to go deep on the why behind them.
Yeah, I like that.
So get ready for some aha moments about tech in your brain and building real connections.
Yeah, I love that approach. I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed by advice sometimes, but I think when you understand the science behind it, it makes those changes feel a lot more achievable. Almost like you're unlocking a secret code to well-being.
Yeah, okay, let's crack that code. So Sharma kicks off with creating what she calls tech-free time blocks, which are essentially quiet hours for your mind. She really emphasizes mornings and evenings. So I'm picturing a Saturday, the sunlight streaming in, and instead of grabbing your phone first thing, you're sipping coffee with a real book.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is the neuroscience behind this. So constant stimulation from our devices actually leads to mental fatigue. It's like your brain is on this treadmill of notifications and news feeds and bright screens and all this stuff, and it impacts our ability to focus and to sleep well, and even the capacity for deep connection with others. So quiet time isn't just a luxury, it's actually like a reset button for our brains.
That's interesting. So that 30-minute phone-free morning routine that Sharma recommends isn't just some arbitrary rule. It's actually giving your brain a chance to wake up gently without that dopamine rush of checking messages.
Exactly. It's about swapping the instant gratification of, picking up your phone and looking at all that stuff for activities that actually nourish your mind and body.
Yep.
So imagine starting your day with some mindful breathing or, some stretching, or even just looking out the window and noticing the world around you. That's a completely different energy than scrolling through social media first thing in the morning.
Yeah, that sounds idyllic. But what about the evening scroll? I know I'm guilty of that. It's almost like a bad lullaby.
Yeah.
So the book suggests sending your phone to bed, an hour before you do.
Yeah.
But I use my phone as my alarm.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I think, it's about finding what works for you. Perhaps a compromise would be, maybe you charge your phone in another room overnight. That way you remove the temptation to constantly check it, Evenings are really a prime time to wind down with activities that don't involve screens. So, reading, journaling, chatting with loved ones, and this pre-sleep routine actually impacts our sleep quality tremendously.
Yeah, it's almost like we have to relearn how to relax. Okay, so we've calmed the pre-sleep scroll, but what about the rest of the day? I swear my phone's like a digital slot machine. I keep checking for that next hit of excitement.
Yeah.
The book calls this section Taming the Tech Beast. Any insights from the science of addiction here?
Oh, this is where it gets really interesting. So every time you get a notification, your brain releases dopamine, which is that feel-good chemical. And it's the same reward pathway that's triggered by, gambling or sugary treats. So you're not weak-willed. You're actually fighting powerful neurochemistry.
Wow. So Sharma's suggestion to do a notification cleanup, to only keep the essentials like calls and key work emails, you're essentially hacking that reward system.
Exactly. You're retraining your brain to associate your phone with what's truly important and not that endless stream of, just distractions.
Right.
And, it's easy to forget that the average person checks their phone over 100 times a day.
It's a lot.
That's a constant dopamine roller coaster.
Yeah, no wonder it feels so hard to focus. Another tip that I loved was about app organization, creating friction to resist that mindless scrolling. So moving social media apps off the home screen and into a folder on the last page. That sounds almost too simple to work.
It does, though. It's about building in those micro pauses that give you a chance to ask yourself, why am I reaching for my phone? Do I need to, or am I just bored? And here's a bonus tip. Switch to grayscale mode in the evenings.
Oh.
And the world suddenly seems a lot less alluring without the bright colors.
That's like taking away the candy coating, like you said. So this is all about regaining control of our attention, right?
Yeah.
But what about social media specifically? It's not all bad, is it? I mean, I learned things. I connect with people.
Oh, absolutely. Social media definitely has its benefits, but I think it's about being mindful. And that's where Sharma's next section, Mindful Social Media, Intention over Impulse, comes in.
Okay.
But I'm curious, before we jump into that, have you ever noticed how you feel after a social media binge?
Honestly, usually a bit drained and comparison prone, which is crazy because I went in hoping to feel connected.
Yeah, and that's a common experience. The key is that mental check-in before you even open the app. You know, ask yourself, why am I opening this? How am I feeling? Will this feed improve my mood, or is there a chance it will make me feel worse? That pause can be incredibly powerful.
It's like putting a speed bump in your digital habits. Another concept I loved was the weekly social media cleanup. I admit my feed is a bit of a mess.
Well, think of it as curating your online experience. Unfollow accounts that make you feel bad. Mute those who overshare. Seek out those that inspire you or teach you something. You know you're in control.
That's a great reminder. I'm already feeling a little more empowered just thinking about it.
That's the goal. Digital wellness is about agency. It's not about deprivation.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we're getting a handle on our phones and our social media, but what about the real world? Sharma called it breaking out of isolation. How do we go from virtual to real connections when it feels like everyone is glued to their screens?
It's the paradox of our time, isn't it? We have thousands of friends online, but we feel increasingly lonely.
Yeah.
And the truth is, online interaction just lacks the depth of face-to-face connection. Our brains are wired for in-person cues, body language, tone of voice, shared experiences. We're not getting that online.
So we should catch up sometime. Promises that never materialize. Sharma has a much more concrete approach, right?
She does. So instead of vague intentions, schedule a weekly friend date. I know it sounds simple, but it can be transformative. Pick a day and a time and a location. Every Tuesday at 7 at your favorite coffee shop. Make it a recurring appointment in your calendar.
Okay.
Like a meeting, but for friendship.
Yeah, that takes away the scheduling ping pong that often derails plans.
Yeah.
But what about those of us who feel overwhelmed by committing to something weekly? Are there baby steps we can take?
Absolutely. Sharma suggests joining one regular activity that gets you out and interacting. So it could be a yoga class or a book club or volunteering, something that you enjoy so it feels nourishing and not just like another obligation on your to-do list.
So the consistency is key. It's building that routine so it becomes like a part of your life.
Precisely. It's finding those pockets of connection that remind you that you're not alone. And it's a powerful antidote to that feeling of isolation that's so prevalent today.
This is all starting to feel really doable. Small changes, big impact. We're going to take a quick pause here, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll dig deeper into creating social routines, using tech for good, and how to actually track your progress towards a more balanced life. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're in the middle of exploring how to reclaim our time and our social lives in a digital world. And I'm already feeling really inspired by this conversation. Before the break, we were talking about just how crucial real-world connections are for our well-being.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, those grand gestures or those big events. Sharma actually emphasizes the power of what she calls creating social routines in our everyday lives. And these are those small, seemingly insignificant interactions that can actually have a huge impact on our sense of belonging and happiness.
Like becoming a regular at your local coffee shop and striking up a conversation with the barista, or even just exchanging smiles with other customers. I admit, I sometimes walk around with my headphones on, completely in my own little world.
I think we all do that sometimes. But imagine if we made a conscious effort to break out of those bubbles.
Yeah.
Think about how you feel when someone remembers your usual order or asks about your day. Those small moments of recognition actually create a sense of community and connection.
It's like we're all craving that sense of belonging, like that feeling of being seen and acknowledged. And those little interactions, however fleeting they may be, they can actually help us feel more grounded and connected to the world around us.
Exactly. It's about weaving those threads of human connection into the fabric of our daily lives. Sharma even suggests a fun challenge. Try to have at least one tiny interaction with another human being every day.
I love that. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. Maybe it's complimenting someone on their outfit or asking a stranger for directions or even just holding the door open for someone. It's those small acts of kindness and connection that can really brighten someone's day and yours.
And here's what's fascinating. Those micro moments of connection actually trigger the release of oxytocin, which is also known as the cuddle hormone. It's associated with trust and bonding and reducing stress. So you're not just being polite, you're actually boosting your own well-being.
Wow, I had no idea there was a scientific basis for that. It makes so much sense, though.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so we've covered creating those social routines in our daily lives, but what about those of us who might be feeling a bit more socially rusty or intimidated by the thought of putting ourselves out there?
Yeah, That's completely understandable. And this is actually where technology can play a really positive role. It's what Sharma refers to as using technology for good, bridging the virtual to the real. So instead of viewing technology as the enemy of social connection, we can actually use it as a tool to facilitate those connections.
So instead of just scrolling through Instagram, we could join a local Facebook group for people who share our interests.
Exactly. Or attend a meetup.com event, or join a virtual book club, or even connect with people on online gaming platforms. These virtual spaces can actually provide a safe and comfortable way to connect with like-minded individuals and to build relationships, and potentially even transition those online friendships into real-world meetups.
That's a really empowering perspective. Technology can be a bridge. It helps us step outside of our comfort zones and connect with people that we might not have otherwise met.
And it doesn't have to be an all-or-nothing approach. Start small. Comment on a post, share a helpful tip, or even just send a friendly message to someone you admire online. Building those online connections can actually lead to increased confidence and a greater sense of belonging.
So it's about being intentional with our technology use,
Yeah,
harnessing its power to connect us, rather than letting it isolate us.
exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about creating tech-free time blocks. We've talked about taming our tech habits, being more mindful on social media, building those real-world social routines, and even using technology to facilitate those connections. That's a lot to take in. How do we make sure we're actually putting these ideas into practice?
Well, that's where Sharma introduces a brilliant tool called the Daily Success Tracker. And it's a simple but incredibly effective way to track our progress and celebrate our wins and stay motivated on this journey toward a more balanced and connected life.
This sounds right up my alley. I love anything that helps me stay organized and accountable. What exactly does this tracker entail?
So it's a daily checklist, and it focuses on key areas of digital wellness and social connection.
Okay.
So for example, did you manage to complete your morning routine without checking your phone? Did you engage in a meaningful conversation with someone? Did you wind down in the evening without screens? Did you stay within your social media limits? And did you take any steps towards connecting with someone new or strengthening an existing relationship?
I love that. It's like a little pat on the back for every effort we make towards building a healthier and more connected life. It also seems like a great way to notice patterns in our behavior. Did I reach for my phone when I was stressed? Or did I actually call a friend instead?
Absolutely. It can help you identify your strengths and weaknesses, the areas where you're excelling, and the areas where you might need a little extra support. The key is to approach it with self-compassion.
So it's not about beating ourselves up if we miss a day or two. It's about noticing those slip-ups and learning from them and gently guiding ourselves back on track.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination. And even small, consistent efforts can lead to big changes over time.
That's so reassuring. It takes the pressure off. It reminds us that we don't have to be perfect to make progress. Okay, we're going to take another quick pause here, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll wrap up our deep dive with some final thoughts, key takeaways, and then some ideas on how to keep this momentum going. Welcome back to the deep dive. I don't know about you, but my brain is like buzzing with ideas after exploring your practical guide to digital wellness and better social connections with Preeti Sharma.
Oh, it's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it? We've covered so much ground, from the neuroscience of tech addiction to the power of those small, everyday interactions.
Yeah, for me, the biggest takeaway is that this isn't about demonizing technology.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that we have choices. We can choose how we interact with our devices, how we spend our time, and how we cultivate our relationships both online and offline.
I completely agree. It's about empowerment, not deprivation. It's about reclaiming our attention and our time and our energy so that we can invest those things in the things that truly matter. Our well-being, our relationships, and our connection to the world around us.
And I love how Sharma gives us practical tools to make those choices. It's not just a bunch of vague advice. It's like a concrete action plan.
Right.
Creating those tech-free time blocks, taming notifications, being more mindful on social media, but building those real-world social routines, those are all things we can start doing today.
Yeah, and remember that daily success tracker we talked about. Such a simple but powerful tool for staying motivated and celebrating those small wins. Every time you check off one of those boxes, you're reinforcing those positive habits and moving closer to that more balanced and connected life you're envisioning.
Yeah, it's like giving ourselves a little high five for every step we take in the right direction. And those small steps, those consistent efforts, they really do add up over time.
Absolutely. It's a journey, not a destination. There will be days when you nail it and days when you slip up.
Right.
And that's okay. The key is to approach it all with self-compassion, to learn from those slip-ups, and to keep moving forward.
This whole conversation has been so inspiring. I feel like I have a renewed sense of hope and like a toolbox full of strategies to create a more fulfilling life both on and offline.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone.
Oh, that's true.
Connect with friends or family members who are also interested in creating a more balanced and connected life. Support each other, share your experiences, and celebrate your successes together. Creating that sense of community can make all the difference.
That's such a great point. It's about building a culture of well-being and connection, not just for ourselves, but for those around us.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Preeti Sharma's wisdom, I'd love to leave you with this thought. Technology is a powerful tool, but it's up to each of us to decide how we use it. Take what you've learned today and start making those small changes that will have a big impact on your well-being and your connections with others.
Beautifully said. And we want to hear from you. What resonated with you most from this episode? What are some of your favorite strategies for creating a more balanced and connected life? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments or on social media using the hashtag #TheDeepDive. And until next time, keep diving deep and keep connecting.